Nikhil, let's go, go, go. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bo, bo, bo. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikhil Kanankara, as you can see here. Today, we are going to talk about the Battle of Gettysburg in the Civil War of the United States. This battle lasted 3 days from July 1st to July 3rd in 1863. Here, these are some slides to talk about it more. So, the Battle of Gettysburg, the turning point in the American Civil War. So, the Civil War had already raged for 2 years before this battle happened. Confederate general, that's Confederate states are the southern states that wanted slavery, so they had made their own nation called the Confederate States of America. So the Confederate General Robert E. Lee sought to take the war into northern territory, hoping to relieve pressure on war-torn Virginia. That means Virginia had already suffered too many wars because lots of wars had happened in that state. So the General Robert E. Lee wanted to remove that and push the wars to the northern side. They wanted to gather supplies from the prosperous Pennsylvania countryside. Now Pennsylvania is in the northern states and it had a lot of goods, and the Confederate Army wanted some goods like shoes, actually, food, and other needs and wants, like guns too. Threatened major northern cities like Philadelphia and Washington DC. Hopefully you all know what Washington DC is. It's right above Virginia. And Philadelphia is in Pennsylvania. So I wanted northern states to cover and turn in. Yeah, that's exactly what's written here. Convince the North to negotiate for peace and possibly gain European recognition and support, like Britain, France, Spain, Portugal, anyone they could find. So the opposing forces are Union Army of the North, or also called Yankees. Commander in the beginning, Major General George D. Meade. They had 93,000 troops. They had the Army of the Potomac, because Washington DC was their capital and the capital was located on the Potomac River. Confederate Army, which is of the South, I just explained. Commander General Robert E. Lee, we just talked about him. 71,000 troops, and it was Army of Northern Virginia because that is where their capital was located. So, day 1, here's where Gettysburg starts. July 1, 1863. In the early morning, Confederate forces encountered Union forces under General John Buford northwest of Gettysburg. This was unplanned and they met accidentally. The Union forces established defensive positions on McPherson Ridge and Seminary Ridge. Confederate reinforcements arrived and pushed Union troops back through town, so that is how they reached Gettysburg. Union forces retreated to high ground on Cemetery Hill, this is really famous, and Culp's Hill, this will come later. Remember this, Culp's Hill. And Cemetery Hill is also important. Lee's forces had won the day but failed to capture the strategic high ground like hills, like these two. Okay, so the bloodiest day of the battle saw fierce fighting across multiple locations. Number 1, Little Round Top. That sounds funny, but it was really, really important. Union Colonel Joshua Chamberlain's famous bayonet charge saved the Union left flank. Left flank means like left wing of the army, kind of. Devil's Den and the Wheat Field. Brutal close quarters combat with massive casualties. So they fought here. They had lots of casualties. Casualties means deaths. The Peach Orchard. Union General Sickles' controversial forward position was overrun. So it means the Union General, last name is Sickles, controversial forward position. That means the Union Army was arguing over whether they should put General Sickles there or not. And he was overrun by the Confederate Army in the end, so they should not have. And Culp's Hill, like from the last slide, Confederate attacks on Union right were repulsed. That means the Confederate attacked the Union on Culp's Hill, and the Union fought back, and they made it. The result: despite the Confederate gains, the Union line held. The Union forces were still strong. Now, day 3 of Pickett's charge. Lee ordered a massive frontal assault on the center of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. The Cemetery Ridge is really important, like Cemetery Hill. So that means Lee ordered most of his army to attack the Union line near Cemetery Ridge. 12,500. Think of that. That's like all of the population of a small town, literally. That many Confederate soldiers marched across 3/4 of a mile of open field, that too, under devastating Union artillery and rifle fire. So, basically, 12,500 Confederate soldiers marched in open ground. Now think it like there is one big grass field, like a front yard, but the front yard is 3/4 of a mile long. And on top of that, there are lots of cannons and guns shooting at you. So it's deadly. It lasted for an hour. I know this doesn't seem like a lot of time, but the Union Army had a lot of artillery. The Union Army was stronger and had a lot of artillery, so they could hit the Confederate soldiers a lot. A few Confederate units briefly breached the Union lines at the angle. The attack was repulsed with devastating Confederate casualties, deaths. This marked the high water mark of the Confederacy. In total, 51,000 or more people were killed, captured, or missing. Like, missing means they ran away and no one ever found them. Out of that, 23,000 were from the Union side or the northern side, 28,000 or more from the Confederate side. These losses affect nearly every community in the north and the south. Now, the Union side, the United States, you know how big it is, right? Now, mainland, think of how much it's on the mainland and cut in half. Now cut in half, and that is also cut in half. The top side is the Union, and the bottom side is the Confederate States. Now, think of how many communities are in there, in each of the sides. Now, if nearly every community was affected, that is a lot of deaths. So, on July 4th, which is also when the Declaration of Independence was signed, Lee began withdrawing his battered army back to Virginia. Strategic victory. The Union had stopped Lee's invasion of the North. The Confederacy never again had the strength to invade Northern territory, ever. On July 4th, Vicksburg fell to Grant, Ulysses S. Grant. He later became president of the US, giving Union the control of the Mississippi River. Now, this was a key river in the irrigation of the South. That is why they wanted slavery, and now, since they took up the Mississippi River, all the resources was gone, and they could not fight, even if they had the strength, because when others would die, then more could not come. So the twin victories renewed the Northern resolve to continue the war. 4 months later, on November 19th, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln delivered his famous Gettysburg Address at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery. In just 727 words and about 2 minutes, Lincoln redefined the war as not just a struggle to preserve the Union, but as a test of whether democracy itself could survive. The speech's opening, 7 years ago, and its power conclusion about the government of the people, by the people, for the people, became immortal words in American history. So he gave the Gettysburg Address. That was the most important address, and this is where he talked about how slavery will end. The Battle of Gettysburg remains one of the most significant events in American history. Military significance ended Confederate hopes of foreign recognition and Northern negotiation. That's why the North won. So that's why, like now, today, Britain, India, lots of other countries also recognize them. The turning point marked the beginning of the Confederate decline and ultimate Union victory. Yeah, so that's why, as I said in the beginning, it was a turning point. National Cemetery created the tradition of national military cemeteries. The Gettysburg National Military Park, established in 1895, preserving the battlefield for future generations. This is very, 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 very famous. Culture impact. The battle and Lincoln's address continue to symbolize sacrifice for democratic ideals. So, the Gettysburg Address is Lincoln's address, continues to symbolize sacrifice, the war, because some sacrificed their lives for Democrat. Now, this was the Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg in summary. There are lots of sources online, you can find them there too. Until then, it's me, Nikhil Karanka from Team Nikhil. Let's go, go, go. See ya.